Hello folks, R1 here again. Today we're going to take a look at things a little bit differently. Today we look at Italy versus the world in the War Thunder Ground Forces tank events that are on the live server. Italy doesn't get a lot of play in War Thunder, but they actually have some interesting aircraft. And the top aircraft that they have in their lineup is the Sparviero SM-79B medium bomber. It may not be the biggest, the best, or the fastest, but it is, in my opinion, a very precise tool of destruction when you're going up against ground units. It gets in and out very quickly, and it's very precise. It has enough payload to do the job, and it does it with a certain Italian style. I think you'll be interested in this aircraft once you take a closer look at it. The first map that we're going to look at is Ash River, which is aptly named. It has some of the nastiest anti-aircraft emplacements, grouping-wise, in the entire game. There are two fields, plus some, that are just full of anti-aircraft guns, and they're very accurate. So I'm going to kind of cheat. Well, it's not cheating, but I'm going to load up with a couple of 500-kilogram bombs so that I can get in, do a lot of damage, and get out quickly. Well, at least that's the plan. And that is exactly what I don't want to see. The sky full of red. Okay, so that didn't end very well. Let's try that again. Beautiful plane. Man, that's a lot of AA. And it's already tearing me up. I see a potential target, but I lose him again. I take my shot anyway and realize I've put myself right over the anti-aircraft fields. Bad move. So as the Ash River Valley of Death claims me yet again as a victim, I think that maybe I have this figured out. If we get the map again, which we will, we're going to do things a little bit differently. This time around, we're going to swing wide and ease in, nice and slow. I'm going to try and get in under the radar, so to speak. Stay out of that. Oh, great. Yak. Well, at least I've got a couple of fighter escorts this time. Hopefully they'll keep that fella off me. If I can just avoid getting my tail shot off by this AA again, I may be able to do okay. There's some activity up there. Not lined up for the other guy. Let's see what we can take out here. And I managed to take out a NPC tank or two. It's alright. We'll start out slow. At least we're still alive. I am finally starting to get the hang of this aircraft. My first two attempts weren't really failures of the aircraft. They were just simply failures on my part. Which happens. There's a KV-1 and an NPC tank. We'll pass over him. Go for the player, always. And there we go. That's a lot more like it. Now I'm out of bombs, so I check the map for the airfield and start heading back to rearm my aircraft and patch up any incidental damage I may have taken along the way. The only thing at this point that has me a little bit worried is I'm still in this valley of death. There's all that AA behind me, and they still have a shot at me. That enemy aircraft is still in the air too. And they are still shooting at me. But if I get around this bend, I'll be okay. Ah, it hit me again. But here we go. We'll get out of the line of fire now and we'll be alright. It looks like I'm not the only one who's having to go back and repair and rearm. One of my fighter escorts is heading that way too. The base is just ahead and down to the right-hand side. I just wanted to show you the proximity of the airfield to the actual zone of combat on this map. I'm following the river in, and I'm staying low. We're going to take another shot at this. Now, I've been monitoring the progress of the battle while I rearmed, and our team's doing pretty well over there, but they've got two problems left. The last two enemy pieces of armor on the field are a couple of nasty brutes on a ridgeline overlooking the battlefield. And they have the guys pinned down and are giving them a hard time. It's a KV-2 and an SU-122 tank destroyer. Well, here's where I earn my keep. That should put things away. My only problem now is I'm back in the Valley of Death again. And I have to make it to the other end, or to the end of the match, without becoming a victim again. Made it. Was getting a little torn up there, but I did okay. 5 kills, not too bad. Now let's see how she does on one of my favorite maps, Jungle. Looks like I've got a fighter escort again, which is nice, and an ME-410 heavy fighter behind me. Not in a bad position this match. One other thing that I have going for me is the AA on this map isn't anywhere near as heavy as the last one, so that's a good thing. Yeah, looks like I'm going to need that fighter escort. I think I'm going to let him get a little further ahead of me before I charge into the fray. I decided at the last minute to pass up that NPC tank and end up scoring a KV-85 instead, a player tank. Probably the better choice. Well, that yak over there is making me really nervous, as you can see. He's hotly pursued, but he could still swing around easily on my tail. And my machine guns are starting to go off, so I go after these NPC tanks and decide to go back to rearm and let my team deal with this fighter before I get involved too much more heavily in the fight. Think bad of me if you will, but in this case, in a bomber, I think discretion is the better part of valor. At this point, the team's doing pretty well, but our surviving fighters have gone back to rearm and re-equip. They're coming back with me, but our boys have been on their own for a while on the ground. Icon is in the way, and I cannot see the tank that's capturing our base, so I decide to swing wide and come at it from another angle. Somebody nailed the base, but there's no kills registered, so Yeah, there's definitely somebody there, though. Even though they stopped briefly, that fighter's trying to strafe someone moving back into the cap. So they're trying to be clever. I'm not lined up very well on this, and I hesitate. I do some damage, but I don't get the kill. So I'm going to swing this thing around just as quickly as I can, which is something this particular aircraft excels at. It's very agile for a bomber. And head back in for another pass. That did the trick. Sometimes my big bomb strategy pays off nicely. I may not be there peppering bombs at a lot of different targets, but usually what I hit dies, usually. And I try to be there when the team really needs to get that kill made. Timing is everything. And the next stop on our world tour, Kuban. I have a couple of friendly fighters in the air with me, but I'm going to swing a little wide. As experience has shown, it's always wise to let your fighter escort go in first, just in case. And it's starting to look like that was a really good idea. Fighters on my team are going to move in and engage quickly, which is good. But this is going to be a little tricky. These boys are being pretty aggressive. I'm already taking hostile fire. So I find a target and I decide to just drop both bombs right away, make sure I get that kill, and get out of dodge. There's a couple of IL-2s back there and one's already shooting at me. And looks like he's probably pursuing. So I'm going to see if I can put some distance between me and him. Yeah, here he comes. And I've got a fighter coming up behind him as well. That's very, very good news. So I try and get this thing lined up as best I can so I can assist my teammate in taking this guy down. I'm going to waggle my tail real quick. Was in my blind spot, and that got him in a position where I could actually open fire. Great. He just took down my fighter escort. but my friend did some serious damage to him, and I got in some good hits too. Hopefully that'll be enough. One quick little burst of fire later from my tail gunner, operating on his own for a change, and down he goes. As I try to get lined up for this rather awkward landing, I noticed that my other teammate that was in the air with me is also coming in for a landing. He looks like he's hurt. And he looks like his landing was not a particularly good one. That's gotta hurt. Meanwhile, the fight's been raging on without me. I do my best to get back there as quickly as possible. It's time to earn my keep. That fella just died just before I got there. Time to change targets. That worked out pretty well. It's the important thing to remember. If you're going to take up a slot in one of these mixed ground forces and air forces battles, you're going to take up a slot in an airplane, you need to be a team player. You need to make that count. You better be there when your team needs you. And if it's a good team, they appreciate it. Well, before I can get back, the guys on the ground do an excellent job of taking out the last enemy tank destroyer. Good job, fellas. Well done. This little Italian bomber, in my opinion, is a very underrated craft. It does its job very quickly and very efficiently. It gets in and out, and it, for the most part, keeps you alive pretty well. I couldn't have done my part in this battle without that fighter escort, too. Let's Let's make sure that we remember that as well. Each one of us played our part in this match, and it turned out beautifully. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this particular episode. Whether your targets are on the ground or in the air, good hunting.